startups that we're working with, it is a tight bond, specifically helping them with a better approach on the technology stack and technological advisory, and generally the product and business strategies as well sometimes. It is really challenging a way of building those systems in a way that will allow to build a system with the thinking in mind how we can build a system today that tomorrow will have this capability. That is impossible to do today.
We think, or the masses think, that AI should make no mistakes and that it is a magic wand that solves everything and is the be all and end all. And when it doesn't solve everything and when it doesn't do everything, we're like, it's nonsense, it's rubbish, it's no good. It was never that in the first place. And if you humans think, or you masses think, that that was ever the case, then more fool you for believing that. Absolutely. So Vadim, thank you very much for being here today. It's an absolute pleasure to finally connect. So I appreciate you responding to the outreach. I'm very, very interested to hear about Diffco. Your AI-driven solutions regarding or including LLMs, NLP, and your vision from where you started to where you are today and where you see going forward. Tell me about your story. Tell me about your journey. Tell me about your bottlenecks. Tell me about where you're at.
Thanks for inviting. It's exciting to be here. So let me kind of give you a quick overview about myself, and happy to dive into other interesting topics. So first of all, again, we started the company 17 years ago, and originally it was a software development house that was mostly focusing back then on a web development, obviously. It was 2008. It's quite a long time ago. Completely different reality, I think, and partially. And we switched gears multiple times, and now we mostly focus on large-scale project development, staffing, and other type of AI lead projects. Mostly it's, again, complex type of system that we're developing in thousands and hundreds of thousands of hours sometimes. So this is the thing that we're focusing on, and working for a lot of mid-sized enterprises, plus a few larger folks. And obviously, again, love working with startups just because we're here in Silicon Valley. So it's kind of, we have no way not to work with the startups. I think it's just a natural culture that we have here in the Valley. But yeah, so it was quite a journey, and now I think it's more active than ever.
So you say, it's inevitable, or you can't help but start with startups. What are you finding that startups are sort of coming to you for, and what are you solving for them? What you feel is like the general sort of commonalities between them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a few things. First of all, in terms of the in terms of like a general approach, I think for the startups, I think it's mostly, so as a company, we help them with the software development needs that they have, MVP development, and just putting things together in terms of the process there. But in terms of the other type of exercises that we do there, we help them a lot with the product strategy, and also I do a lot of advisory for startups, and also part of Alchemist Accelerator, helping there with advisory. So most of the time it is AI related or product or security related, as well as I do invest in some of them, and typically in the same areas there. So my primary focus is B2B SaaS. This is what I'm good at. And obviously expanding this now to AI, and being in AI for the last almost 9 years, developed a bunch of things, starting originally with computer visions, even before the gun networks were the thing, and obviously before the diffusions happened. And yeah, so it was quite a journey there, but for the many startups that we're working with, it is a tight bond on specifically helping them with a better approach on a technology stack and technological advisory, and generally the product and business strategies as well sometimes.
And how central is AI solutions in that tech stack now versus before?
It is a good question. I think it depends how we call it, basically, because in reality, it would be uh, again. I think now it's more digitalized than ever because again, it is so many different models that exist and so many approaches on building this in the right way. I think all the open source models that exist is really helping to drive this in the right direction. I think it's much more dynamic now than just like, hey, we're using OpenAI or we're using Anthropic or we're using Gemini, etc. In many cases, it is a good start. In many cases, when you grow, you will go and build a combination of different models that will be most likely connected to different open source models. And the only question always will be like, what is the best performance? And if again, OpenAI provides the best result there, or Anthropic provides, you choose them, or you switch gears sometimes, obviously, if needed.
Got it. So, I mean, how did you grow your, on the basis that clearly, so basically you're saying in your AI stack, you'll compare and contrast what your current AI solutions or SaaS solutions deliver versus what, say, an AI equivalent would, and you would then choose one or the other, compare one or the other, and then apply that where it makes sense. Is that how you work? Is that how you operate?
It depends. So if we have the folks that come in to us and trying to build a large scale system, for example, and it is sometimes no right answer to the problem. So, for example, we built some medical systems that rely heavily on AI. And right now is the current state of LMs. It always will be an error rate. And how you get this to be as low as possible, because the reality on all of those systems and how we see this, that we have humans that making mistakes in a job constantly. I mean, if you have a banker, they will make mistakes. If you have a doctor, man, they making mistakes all day long. Again, and even in obvious cases, they will sometimes will make those mistakes. But we expect AI not to make mistakes because, like, if the human crashes the car, it's okay. But if the self-driving crashes the car, it's absolutely terrible because we feel not in control, basically. So, from my perspective, it is really challenging way of building those systems in a way that will allow to build a system with the thinking in mind how we can build a system today that tomorrow will have this capability that is impossible to do today. So basically, you're taking a bet against the market and you believing that this solution will deliver you the best result. And maybe sometimes it's a question of that it will do in the next 6 months, sometimes in the next year, sometimes more. So you're building this in a step-by-step process, allowing this to grow the ideal scenario when it will make almost no mistakes. And I think this is the challenge that you will see in a lot of those type of systems where people believe that they should have zero mistakes. In reality, again, we all have some mistakes that will be made in some one way or another. I cannot say that human doctors would not make mistakes in the future. They will. It's just the nature of the human life. So I think we need to change the approach how we think about this, or systems need to advance.
It's very interesting that you say that to me because I find it unbelievable how the level of what I call scaremongering has reached that we think, or the masses think, that AI should make no mistakes and that it is a magic wand that solves everything and is the be all and end all. And when it doesn't solve everything and when it doesn't do everything, we're like, it's nonsense, it's rubbish, it's no good. And I'm like, it was never that in the first place. And if you humans think, or you masses think, that that was ever the case, then more fool you for believing that. Because it isn't that. What it does do is scale large amounts of information like that instantly to be able to then bring to your attention so that you human can then discern and put your overview against, to tweak it, correct it, change it. And by the way, humans, AI was created by humans. So to think that the thing that humans have created doesn't have mistakes in itself inherently, because it's made by humans in the first instance, is nonsense.
I think it's questionable. Maybe it's not created by humans. I think we should start a conspiracy theory here.
No, but,
But
AI, the technology's been created.
I get your point.
Right? AI hasn't created itself.
I don't know about this, but yeah, you're most likely right.
I mean, but it's true though. You can't say that. Yes, you can turn around and say there are there's artificial generative AI in place whereby it is allowed to go and do things itself. But in the first instance, it was created and formulated and coded by a human.
Sure.
Right. So,
it's true.
So it's been created by a human in the first place. Now, even if it's gone from like a million inputs to a gazillion, 1,000 gazillion inputs, right? It's still inputs that it's been given at some point, or input some point, by humans. So humans have created this. Now, it might be at the point whereby these gazillion inputs are creating permutations that us humans have never thought about, but it's still, and therefore you could argue it's doing its own thing in that arena, but it's still within a contained arena, even though that arena is now gigantic.
Sure, and I think like you're absolutely right. So this is the current scale, and the question is how it will change when we will be talking more about the synthetic data versus the human inputs here. And I think what we see now that, like, for example, the Grok 4 is mostly again trained on synthetic data, and Grok 5 probably will be trained mostly on synthetic data. And I think it's an interesting question how you maintain the good quality of the synthetic data in such scale. Because again, by the end of the day, it is a basically combination of three things: compute, algorithms, and data. And again, you can buy your way out of compute. You can build algorithms, but to be exact, most of the algorithms between those general purpose models are basically the same. And like it's maybe a few percent here and there that they kind of different in same generation of the models. And later, yeah, so it's only a question of data. Do you have the knowledge? And yeah, I think like we need to understand that AI is not a magic thing. It's just predicting the next symbol, technically. And it doesn't have the pure understanding of what you're trying to do. It's just predicting the symbol. Just doing this in really good way. And we trying to think that, yeah, it's cautions and like it understand what is going on there. It can think, it have their own feelings. Yeah, I mean, if you work long enough with anything, you will believe in this. But the truth is, it's still the system that just predicts the next symbol. And the question is how we apply it so we can do the multiplications that we want to do for the business. And I think this is the core question for any industry right now, because in many cases, people would be really slow on adapting things and not having the opportunity to really try this in a way that would make sense. And again, I remember multiple waves that we had as technological waves. And I remember how in 2000s, everything was growing, etc. And again, obviously, dot-com bubbles, etc. Plus, again, we had multiple mobile revolutions that happened with the first waves of iPhones, seconds, etc. When the App Store started, when the crypto started. So it was a lot of waves, but this one is slightly feels different. I think this is what can grow much more than just a mobile or just a simple logic behind this. Again, I'm not saying that current state will be AGI and we will have the AGI in the next couple of years, etc. Maybe. Again, I obviously only see the same models that you had in your experience. And again, my point is really simple. I think we should find our way to understand that it definitely will go forward in much faster pace that we had anything before then. And we need to be mindful about how we apply this and not being stuck with the same ideology that it will not be good enough and no one will use it, etc. Because you will not be replaced by AI. You will be replaced by humans that know how to utilize AI and use it in their work. And this is the simple thought that I have, and I think this is really true to every kind of business there.
For sure, without a doubt, it's something that I've been saying to people for a few years about AI and about how it's an enabler for us, not a replacer of us, for sure. And by no means will AI ever replace the human experience, right? Not in any way, shape, or form. What it will do is amplify our ability to amplify ourselves if we take it on board. And to your, as you rightly say, people who use AI will replace humans that don't use AI. Simple as that. But in your,
I want to challenge you on this, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, please.
Because I've been researching a lot of AI companionships recently, and I see that these systems that exist right now, like for example replicas, again, and the Grok companionships that they have there, these 4 characters that exist, and how people use them is really fascinating. And I think this is the future, unfortunate future that we have, at least in the current form, that it's actually challenging and really kind of using the most manipulative approach to the human nature. And it's quite succeeding. So it's much more addictive than social medias, than TikToks, etc. And I spent some time playing with this and spent some time researching what people was discussing, how they think about this. And they think about those products as their friend. And they fully believe that this is much better than their actual human friends. Because it will say whatever they want. It will help them cope with something. It will do something that they believe is important for them. And I think the logic behind this is really scary, because people really get addicted to certain things really, really quickly. And you remember when the ads just started hundreds of years ago, in a mass market, people believed in this. And now you show the same ad to someone and they just walk past this ad. And we, as humans, as a species, we we really learned how to manipulate ourselves really, really well. And we went to the condition right now that the current state of our technology, again, before it was social media with this doom scrolling, and now it's additional companionships that will love you, in comments obviously, but still love you, and you will believe that they actually a friend. And for many people, unfortunately, this is the much more than they have in real communication with actual humans. So I think it's really interesting, and I think it's a lot of potential in this, and especially for the businesses. However, in the same way, I think it's quite challenging for us as a society.
So 2 things on that. Really interesting that you say that, and I really appreciate you challenging. With respect to humans not being replaced by AI, I talk about jobs and like people embracing it in that sense, and that's how you'll supercharge yourself with respect to employment and in the job space. And in that respect, I stand by humans that use AI will replace humans that don't, for sure. That's what I think. With respect,
Agree.
with respect to relationships, and it's so interesting that you say that, how you feel or how your research has led you to see or observe that people actually see an AI as their friend, and better than the human experience in that regard. Well, 2 things on that. The immediate response to that was that's scary for humanity, that's scary for society. But if I as a human isn't getting that human interaction that does support me in the way that I require from a human, because I don't find the right person or the right crowd or the right people or my right types, or because I just don't fit in, isn't some resource at the very least better than no resource?
I like your challenges. That's quite good. I think it depends, because I think that the question is how durable we are by end of the day. Can we actually still have a differentiations between the actual communication with a human and with AI? Because again, when we're dreaming, our brain is basically have the same output as actual situation wherever you're dreaming of. So I think it is definitely will increase loneliness, and I think it definitely will have challenges with the human connections. And if we're talking, for example, about dating or general human connection type of friendships, I think AI definitely will be challenging this, because for many people, with all the nonsense that happening there, is just much simpler to adapt to much more acceptable approach with their social interactions, and don't have these social challenges and walk through the approaches there. So again, some of them will prefer to build a virtual relationship versus real relationships. And the point is, AI will provide much better emotional support in many cases. And it will be providing the empathy, it will provide this human-like experience that people is missing. And I think it's scary in a way, but it's definitely helpful for many people. The point is, can we draw the line between those two? Can we understand that this is different? And this is, again, a tool. It's not the solution to everything. Again, like, you can drink wine and enjoy the evening, or you can be drunk. And again, you need to draw the line. And sometimes it's really hard for some people.
Yeah, I love that analogy with wine and being drunk and having a good time and being drunk, and that's a great analogy, and I do love that. When you talk about it being scary, scary as we know it compared to how society has been today, right? And again, it's incumbent on us as humans on how we incorporate it in the same way that you discuss how much wine you drink at a party or not. So it's scary. It's scary compared to what we know, right? It's because that's all we've known. And, I think back to your point before about how AI is different. It's not different for the sake of being different. It's different because it is disruptive in a way that Bitcoin, crypto, it's far more disruptive than that. It's far more disruptive than social media. It's far more disruptive than the internet. It is most definitely a quantum leap difference in what we are upon. And therefore, it's scary compared because it's an unknown to many people, right? It's scary because it's different from what all we have ever known. And in that respect, I understand that it's scary, but to your point, it's then incumbent on us as to how much we drink.
Yeah, and the problem that I definitely see, and like coming back to the business kind of the side of things, I think how we interpret and how we use those type of things in a business is really will be a question of like doing this in the right way and doing this in a way that will be helpful for consumers and helping them to grow, not to basically spend 5 hours a day there. Again, I think the point is it is a wonderful tool. And I would prefer to have a virtual coworker that will work 24/7, will do a lot of things better than many humans will. And I find to have these relationships. And again, it's tools out there, like David, etc., that kind of like helps you do this in the right way. But I think we will have more type of approaches there. And I think it is a challenging logic, but definitely it would be really helpful for many industries. And it will be changing the way how we interact with things. Because like coming back to like a first principle, again, if for example we take a customer service and call centers, again, AI will do the much better job that many trained agent will. So this is like a hard truth. And you can communicate with this in much better deterministic way. It doesn't need to use scripts in the same way that a human agent will in many cases. And it will allow you to resolve issues quickly. And in last year, I had multiple communications with customer support, and I had multiple communication with AI customer support. And each time I had good communication with AI support, it was faster, it resolved my issue, and it did it fast. Like, I mean, basically it was much better experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I typically will have more complicated type of questions. And I believe if it's like a simple type of problems, I think many people will definitely will use this as a tool to resolve 99% of the issues. So I think this is the interesting challenge, how you apply this in a way that's at least solve like 90 plus percent of the issues. And after, again, yeah, you can have 10% working for humans and like specifically again helping with some more complicated type of questions or maybe more value type of situations.
So I think what you hit the nail on the head there in terms of this is going to be about how we embed it, right? How people embrace it, how they embed it, how they interweave it into their businesses, into how their companies operate, and understanding how how AI, generative AI, can be embedded actually into the operations of their company to affect efficiencies and productivity. That quantum leap is definitely something that I'm finding and seeing as as the gap, or the leap that people aren't seeing, aren't understanding, aren't getting quite yet. They're using ChatGPT 5, they're using Claude, they're using Perplexity, they're using Grok, they're using whatever they're using just to answer questions and be their friend, right? But that's the gap that people like you are, are dealing with. And how would you say you're approaching people who resist, embedding generative AI in these sorts of productive ways, or even seeing that it can be? Because there's still resistance to whether or not it can be or not, right? All people are really seeing is how to use generative AI is through the means that we've just mentioned, as opposed to actually putting it into the base case of their operations.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about this. I mean, in terms of like folks that specifically in my company, again, I'm trying to embrace this and try to show people what you can do with this. Again, we're really actively using a lot of AI tools and used it in the past as well. A lot of ML applications before the Gen AI stuff. But again, you just put this as a mandatory thing to do and use it in a way. But I think like the core principle, for example, we use AI a lot in software development, for example. And when we ask people to actually use the, for example, Coursers or Cloud Code and other tools, the core logic that we have behind this, that you need to understand what you're using this for. You find to use this to develop the solution that you have, but you need to understand what is the output is. Again, if it's just allowing you to write faster, great, no problem. But if its output is something that you do not understand, this is where we have a challenge, and this is where we need to explain you that you need to understand, because it will become as basically the old way of doing things, is like Stack Overflow programming, copy and pasting things, and not really understanding this. Now it's just much faster because you don't need to Google this, and you can just again compile this with different tools, and it will allow you to generate pretty much good things. But again, I think in a way that we can generate some prototypes, like basically in a day, that would typically take months to do previously. I think it's really fascinating and really the right logic behind this. So I think like, again, it is definitely some industries where you want to be more careful with things and implementing things. But I just know that AI will be more helpful for me in many, many cases. As example, like if I have my test results from my doctor office, I will actually go and ask ChatGPT or whatever AI tool that I use about them. And I will understand what the question I should ask the doctor, what the treatment options are, what I can do before then, because sometimes the doctor will not be available. And certain things, again, obviously, I need to wait until I consult. But in many, many cases, it's quite obvious and quite clear the decision there. But it will allow me as a patient be more productive. And in the same way, for the business use cases, I can take the output and make it much more impactful for everything. Again, I still need to take the direction. So my point is, if you don't know where you're going, AI will not help you. So it will not drive the road for you with the solution, unless you ask, obviously, again, so what ways to do this. But the problem is that people sometimes will go to some of those tools and ask like, hey, build me a website for my company. I do let's say plumbing. Great. You gave it a task, but it doesn't know anything about you. It doesn't know how you different from other plumbers in the area. It doesn't know what the specific logic that you have there, etc. And it will do some job, and it probably will be good. The question is, in some cases, your prompts should be a couple of pages long. And in many cases, people's prompts are like maybe a couple of lines there and not detailed enough. And they say like, it's, I didn't really like the answer. It's not detailed enough. I do not, feel that the AI did a great job. And most likely the answer is you not define the job. And you think that as a human would ask you 10 different questions before it will execute. And in many cases, it would not.
And that comes down to ultimately being incumbent on the human to use it properly, right? And that's ultimately, whilst this might be genius technology, if the human at the end of it isn't particularly smart, well, in using it or embracing it or approaching it properly, well, the output's not going to be particularly great in itself, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Simple as that.
I think it's true for current state of the situation, because like right now, I strongly believe that using all the AI generation tool for code, for example, is absolutely terrible when you put a junior developer in front of this, because this person just doesn't really know what the output should look like. And when you put the senior engineer, for example, or staff level or architect level, they will understand the output and will direct the output to be what it need to be. And I think this is the core difference there. And again, it could be different in the next iterations of AI. Right now, it's like 100% true. Like I cannot say that, hey, make the application secure, and it will make application secure, because it is a stupid requirement. Because it's like, it doesn't mean that it's like the same as like, hey, build me a house. What does house mean? Is this like one-story house, or it's a skyscraper and you just need a flat there, or like what the problem there? So what the logic that what you need basically, and I think you need to define this much more clearly there. And I think it would be definitely really helpful for many folks to have this as a right tool in their arsenal if they understand the use cases.
And it, ironically, right, what it's made me think of is the problem to the question that you pose, or what you've just described there, then forces the human to really dig deep as to what their purpose and what their ultimate goal and outlook is, which then it conversely or ironically forces the human to dig deeper and be more of who and what they are. And that's been prompted by AI in the first instance, because in order to get a good output, a right output from AI, you need to be detailed. Who, what you are, what your purpose is, what your detail is, what your goals are, what your outlook is, what your specific way of looking at things are, to prompt it correctly in order to get out of the AI something that delivers something that makes sense and knows where it's going. And it requires, in order to get this output worthy, it requires the human to input specific detail based on what and who they are, which requires then the human to dig deeper in themselves, which is not a bad thing.
Oh, 100%. The point is, I believe that only fewer number of folks actually will.
Okay, so yes,
it will be limited how they see this,
right?
And they will. It's like the same as like. So let me kind of give you an example. So when you start a plane, for example, you do run a lot of checklists, you check a bunch of things outside, inside, you do walk around, you check everything, and you follow the certain procedures, etc. When you sit down in a car and you go to your home, for example, office, etc., you don't think how your engine will work. You don't think that, hey, it's probably need to be warm. It's all done automatically for you right now. Again, like 50 years ago was different. Yeah, so it was a different type of engine. It will require more work basically from the humans. And right now, again, for many people, if the car is stopped working, they will go to dealership. They will not try to fix this themselves because it's much more complex systems. And I think we will eventually will go to the point where we will use those complex systems and it will understand ahead. Today, you will be much better off doing the things in the format that just describing the tasks in really details. Because the hard truth is that no one really forgetting to mention, you should describe the task in details as well to the human. You just have a lot of assumptions that people will understand what you need. But in reality, I'm guessing. And again, you can say, hey, let's go have some lunch. And it could mean like 10,000 different things, just depending on what you want to do, when, what type of place, etc. If it's casual, if it's more formal, etc. So it's like 100 different options. And again, I think it's really challenging to define this for many humans. And the idea that you need to define this for AI, it is creating the different paradigm here.
But in some ways, I feel it, you know, it's like people will go around in circles until they get, hang on a second, I need to do something different in order to be able to get a better output. So maybe maybe there's an argument to say it will at some point make people think deeper and go deeper in themselves to figure out what they want, as opposed to just being.
I hope so. I think like we've partially broken as a society. I don't think this will happen. I hope it will. Don't get me wrong. But I just believe that we past this point, and it's much more broken right now. But I hope we will, and I hope we can implement this to the business way that will not just be manipulative, it will be actually helpful for the end user. Because right now, again, we can do much more, and we can accelerate the workflows really dramatically with AI. And I don't think we need to spend human output and human time on many things that they doing right now. I think it's all could be automated in many ways, and we will be able to automate many approaches. Again, we worked, for example, with one company that did a project on invoice automations, and they have many people that specifically work through the process of creating invoice, bill invoices, goes through disputes, etc. Thousands of invoices per week or per day. And this is really where AI can do the work probably much better. Because those people will make mistakes. And we discuss with them how much money they wasting on human errors. And funny enough, it's in millions of dollars per month. Just because, again, certain smaller things not added. And again, on a large scale, it's actually important. So you just think about how you can automate this in a way that would be much more efficient. And definitely you need to double check sometimes for certain type of cases. But for 98% of them, it's really straightforward. and you don't need humans to do this.
For sure.
And again, I think this is the way how we should approach this, how we can challenge the approaches so we will be dealing with the result much more efficiently.
And what challenges are you facing in making people see that, or and bringing that to light? Because not everyone sees what you've just said. I agree with completely with what you've just said, but there is resistance to it. How are you dealing with that resistance, if at all?
I mean, it's a old phrase that kind of dumb, but really, really straightforward. I mean, how to motivate yourself. Do not motivate yourself. You can just be a loser. So it's really simple. So again, some folks will not adopt this and will have the manual process and will overspend, and you will just overcompete them. The point is really simple. Like, you don't need to prove anything. Again, if it's your competition, you need to be grateful that they believe that they need to do this manually. Simple. I strongly believe that it is a logic behind why they do this, and they want to, again, pay their team more, etc. They want to spend more. But by the end of the day, the question is how I can put more dollars in and get even more dollars out. Not the way how I can spend more and get less. So this efficiency is really all that matter. And for some businesses, it's only maybe 10% of their margin is there. And in many cases, for many businesses, their team, their employment cost is really the core part of the expense. So how we can cut it? Again, automations. How we can cut it more and more? Again, virtual assistants in place, etc. So again, definitely, I will not say that it will replace everything today, but you can definitely move to this direction and create this as a much better logical approach to create those type of experiences for the customers that will be, again, defined by AI first, and after, again, if it's more complex, sure, let's move to the actual human being that will be able to solve your question. But in general, I think we will be able to accelerate much more quickly. And I don't think we need to be trying to deal with the adoptions of AI in a way if it's not connected to our systems or like our businesses. Again, it's definitely discomfort that people will feel for sure. But by the end of the day, again, we don't have phone operators anymore. We don't have more and more type of jobs that existed before. Again, if we would not have the modern agricultural thing, I think around 35-40% of US population will be working in agriculture just to feed ourselves. And now this is like a 1 or 2%, if I remember correctly. So we don't need this because of automation, because of the tractors, because of the whatever tools we have there. And because of fertilizations, because of all the modern tech that exists. So again, yeah, you can definitely resist this, but you will just go out of business.
I agree with you completely. There's going to be two types of businesses in this world going, in the future. There's going to be businesses that adopt AI into the bed of how they operate, and that's going to be one type of business, and the other type of business is going to be businesses that are out of business. Period.
Yeah, I think it is definitely the case. I think we should focus on how we use this properly, and yeah. Again, I don't think it's a secret. Everyone can use this. So this is the beauty of this. And the point is, it is tools that cost maybe $50, maybe $20 sometimes, that you can use to really accelerate your workflows. And the point is, cost will actually go down. So the point is, if the businesses believe that they need to still do the manual workflows, be my guest. I think the point is how you can rethink this from AI first principle. Again, I'm not saying that we should replace everything with AI, obviously. Again, it's not possible today. But we can do a lot of work that will allow us to focus on more important things and use your workforce to do things that will accelerate, not decelerate you.
100%. I fully agree with you. It's almost a case of there's no need for those people who resist it, who are, you have an offer, for example, whereby you have, solutions using AI. If people don't want that, move on. You don't have to convince those people, and that there are enough people out there who do get it but don't understand how to implement it. Focus on them, and the others will be left behind.
Yep. So again, I think that's the point is use the tool wisely. So again, you can dig the hole with a shovel, so you use your bare hands.
I'm with you.
So
I'm with you.
This is your choice.
Yeah, I love that, and I love how you made a couple of analogies there. Drinking wine to be happy, or get drunk, or shovel, or manual hands. What do you want to do? It's for sure. I couldn't agree with you more. And yeah, as we wrap up here, what would you say your sort of views are for going forward on what you're doing in your business, how you see things sort of developing from here?
I think the point is that the question that I'm asking myself almost every day in a way that how I can take the tech that never existed yesterday and apply it to what we have, and how I think my industry and other industries will change in a matter of next months or next years, because it definitely will be different. It will not be the same. And the logic that I have is, again, taking probably really dramatic bets on things. But for now, all the bets that I made actually went beyond this, and really I realized that, again, I was betting that this will be much slower process. I don't think the thing that's possible to do today with AI, I think, is definitely not something that I would predict that would be possible 2 years from now. 3 years ago. And right now, I think the logic that I have is to rethink everything, and with the point of how we can implement new things, how we can create the interfaces different, how we can create the logic with interaction with humans that doesn't require you to spend so much time on dashboards, filters, and searches, etc. How we can make the interface that will give you the answers, or how we can create the interface that actually done the tasks for you, and you just need to approve them. So I think this is the kind of mechanics that we have for many development projects that we have right now. You just logging in and you seeing already drafts of things that you can just execute. And this is, I think, the best approach, because in this case, you're really supervising and you're not telling AI what to do and spending time there. We can predict what AI can do and just do this for you. And you just need to formally approve if it's okay to move forward with this, or you need to change something. So I think this is the difference in interfaces and difference in the output that we will have. So I think acceleration here would be much more critical for sure.
So user experience, ultimately, the UI, that's going to be absolutely critical, right?
I think that you need to rethink this from the first principle using AI, and I think you need to rethink this from not only from the user experience, but also by the end of the day, rethink this from the logic, what the actual need of this solution, of this tool for the user. why they're actually using this. Do you even need this tool in the same way that exists today? Because again, like for example, email for me right now is different tool, because when I'm logging in the morning, I have already drafts for emails that I need to write and respond. And I spend much less time responding to my emails because I'm not drafting the emails in many cases. At least for probably 60% of emails that I'm sending today is all drafted by AI. And really rarely I change something because it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I'm with you. I'm with you totally. And I think that's the key. It's like you do not need everything out there AI. You need what is required and necessary for your particular user case, and the rest is, superfluous. It's like, if you have a product, you don't need to sell to 8.1 billion people on this planet. You need to sell to people, who care about your particular product or service, which could be, 1,000 people, 100 people, to suffice your revenue targets, right? You don't need the whole sea, the whole ocean. You need the small lake that suffices beyond what you can probably deliver, right? So it's more a case of what do you need as opposed to everything out there.
Agree.
So, okay, my friend, it's been an absolute pleasure, Vadim, to talk to you and hear your insights. Very, very interesting. I'd love to be able to follow up at some point to catch up with you, in the future. But I will be in touch with you very, very shortly on this podcast. And, your insights have been truly helpful. And definitely a lot of food for thought. So I thank you very, very much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting.
Yeah,
My pleasure.
absolutely. And I wish you much success, and we shall be in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.